Thanks for listening to Marketing in the Age of AI. Be sure to subscribe wherever you heard this podcast so you never. In an ever-evolving digital landscape, for your business to thrive, you must adapt or die. Welcome to Marketing in the Age of AI, the podcast helping you harness the power of AI and marketing tools to revitalize and grow your business. And now here's your host, marketing expert and author of Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI, Emmanuel Rose.
Welcome to this episode of Marketing in the Age of AI. Today we have Sean Griffith, the founder of Truffle, an innovative AI-powered interview platform designed specifically for small businesses. Sean has a remarkable track record, having propelled simple texting from 1 million to 40 million in ARR, utilizing self-serve SEO-driven approach. His deep understanding of SaaS scalability without chasing fleeting trends is instrumental in his current endeavor to revolutionize the hiring process, one automated interview at a time. Let's delve into how Sean's expertise can inform our strategies in the AI landscape. Sean, thanks for taking some time to talk with me today.
Yeah, very happy to be here, Emmanuel.
Well, you've been in the thick of it for a few years here, haven't you?
Yeah, it's been, needless to say, a busy, 7 or 8 years, I guess, since joining Simple Texting at a very, very early stage, and lots of growth and learnings over that time.
Well, what drew you into the tech landscape?
Yeah, it's funny. I think the thing, I've always been interested in it from a very young age. I had sort of entrepreneurial parents, and I think I got sucked in, as a combination of those two things from an entrepreneurship standpoint, and then just with sort of a deep interest in technology. And then, what layered on top of that, I guess, was, solving problems. And, that's where, how today we can use technology to solve problems in different ways than we, ever could before.
And then are you working on the coder side of things, on the business side, on the marketing side? Where do you really land in the whole sphere?
Yeah, it's at this stage, it's sort of wearing every hat, but less coding, right? We have a great team that does that. That's sort of powerhouse. For me, it is operations and marketing, I think, are probably my two specialties, although I've worn the sales hat for a long time as well. So sort of, dancing around all of those roles. Love it.
Well, you've got really solid experience with SEO and building out SEO programs. How are you seeing that morph in terms of answer engine or generative engine optimization?
Yeah, it is not the same game. I think a lot of the fundamentals are still in place, right? That have driven, the sort of growth in SEO for us over time. But it's, a fundamentally different game than it was 6 or 7 years ago, right? Where there was a reliable algorithm. It changed, sort of twice a year, and you spent a little bit of time trying to figure out, what the changes were. But for me, it's always been, how do you produce really good content that speaks to the user? And as long as you sort of hold that as the most fundamental thing, you're going to do all right. And so, we are still continuing down that path, but layering in, additional strategy to help us build in the, sort of AEO, GEO world.
And what's the layer of strategy? What are you guys doing to maximize there?
Yeah, for us, it's a sort of multi-pronged approach, right? It's really good content, and the way that we build content, I guess, is a little bit different today than it was in the past.
In terms of how you're structuring it, or
I would yes, in terms of structure, I would say sort of where we target our content. The spot of the funnel, right, is a little bit different today, right? So we might be building a little bit more sort of bottom of funnel content, right? Or mid funnel content than we had in the past. as well as how we're building the content itself, right? So within the content, how we're answering questions, how we're researching what content to build is a little different today, and then how we're continually sort of organizing that content is different, right? So we use, for instance, we've more recently leaned into MCP, right, and connecting up some different tools, and that's just giving us data insight that we didn't have before to help us build our content clusters, right, and really make sure that we're targeting the right ICP and those different areas.
That's cool. I love that. Now, this venture that you're working on now is around a hiring process for SMBs.
Yeah, that's right.
Describe that a little bit for us.
Absolutely. So maybe a small piece of history, I guess, right? So, at Simple Texting and then later at Cinch, which is sort of a large global organization, what we found is hiring is literally one of the most important things that any business can do, right? But it often took a back seat, right? Because the house is on fire in a million different areas. And so you had less time to sort of spend hiring. And then that often led to compromises. And, being a remote company, we were global, we would have 1,000 applications to any job, and how do you possibly sort through 1,000 applications to find the top 10? It's absolutely just impossible. And so for me, with the abilities that you have with AI now, we said, hey, there's got to be a better way to do this, without taking the sort of human factor out, right? And so Truffle basically is a one-way video interview platform that layers AI on top, right? So you can, you can interview many, many, many more candidates, without having to go through the sort of scheduling and doing those first-round interviews. And you get a really good sense of the candidates themselves, right? With some additional higher intelligence sort of built into it, right? So as an example, you're going to get like a match ranked list of candidates for your particular job, right? That also looks at your company culture and a number of other factors. So that way you can spend the time with, the 10 candidates who are likely the best fit versus trying to sort through 1,000 resumes where you can't even tell what's real.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting. There's a lot of conjecture that resumes in general are dead anyway, right?
Yeah, for a while, I think that was our H1 on our site, right? Is resumes are dead, more or less. I think we changed that now, but yeah, absolutely, right? It is today. I mean, it's just impossible to know what's real, and so the best way I think is talking with people to really find out what's real. And so, although it is not necessarily face to face in that first round, it gives you a much better idea, and then you can dive deeper with those sort of top candidates.
Yeah, and then how are you guys doing filtering out the doppelgangers, the video doppelgangers from Hey Gen or something?
It's hard. It's really hard. Absolutely, right? So you've got to layer in. Then it's another layer that you've got to you add in there, right? And so then we're using AI to detect AI, right? Who is using different tools, right? And so that's another task.
So I guess a lot of SMBs are going to say, well, I'm not going to use AI as an interview process because I really want to be there with, through the whole process and all that. So what are you saying for that objection?
Yeah. For us, I don't think it's never sort of replacing. So I want to be really clear here. We're not using an AI interviewer, right? So, I think that is still really early and we're not ready for that. Maybe someday we lean into that, right? But we are not there yet. I think, to me, it's still a little, uncanny valley, a little creepy, right? So for us, it is, the interviewer can record video questions that get asked to the interviewee, or you can just have text questions, right? So that makes it a little more palatable, I think, for a lot of small businesses. And the thing that they get back is, they get back so much time, right? In not having to conduct that first screener, and then they can dive deeper in with those sort of top candidates, which I think is just a huge amount of leverage that they gain back. And frankly, most of these SMBs, they're probably using Google Sheets, right? Or
Right.
still getting their applicants in their email, and they just haven't had access to a tool, right? And Truffle's, built self-serve, very affordable, and so it's giving them access to enterprise-level hiring tools, right, or better
Right.
than at a nice entry-level price.
And what was your like go-to-market rollout strategy when you released the tool?
Yeah, so for us, it's always been really important to be very close to the customer, right? So we started in a sort of very, very early beta phase, right? Some friendlies and getting in front of some folks, but we really started building, the sort of SEO, AEO, GEO very, very early, and seeding that content. And what we found is, there's sort of benefits and drawbacks to generative search today, right? We were actually able to get, into some really great sort of search queries, if you will, very early on, right? So if you looked up, in ChatGPT or some of the other LLMs, right? Truffle would come up very, very early, which was excellent, right? Because you wouldn't have been able to do this, right? Getting sort of the top keywords in Google without a lot of authority, in the past. So, now that's changed a little bit. What we have noticed in the last couple of months, right? They've started to downweight some of the things we did in the very beginning to get into those sort of search queries. And so again, we're sort of changing strategy there a little bit, but that was a very early strategy of ours, right? We were using AI ourselves. We knew that customers were searching in these places more than they ever have been before, and at one point, about 50% of all of our sort of new customers were coming from searches in, some of these tools.
That's a super high ratio, right? With the market penetration right now, it's like 3% for search.
Yeah.
So half of your prospects coming in that way is a testament to early strategy.
That's right. And so for us, we started to see this early, right? That if we did the right things, to sort of get into that search, there was a reward for us on the other side. And so we sort of doubled down there and said, okay, right, this needs to be a part of our strategy. Not ignoring, right? I think we still put a lot of effort into the SEO side of the house, right? Making sure that, we're producing really, really good, high quality content and, in the right areas, but supplementing that with other strategies, right? To make sure that we've got good visibility in the LLMs is super important.
What are the ages of the people who are doing their initial research for a product like Truffle?
Yeah, it is. It's funny. We sort of have two main customer types at this point, right? You have those who are looking for, a video interview software, right? Not necessarily looking for the AI side of things, right? Either because they're using a tool now, and they're looking for a replacement tool, and they happen to find Truffle. But the ones that I think are most interesting for us at the moment is those who are sort of on the cutting edge. They recognize that there's some change coming here, which is part of the bet for us, and that they are looking for something new, in which case the age is generally a little bit younger, right? They've been tasked, their organization probably has some mandate to bring AI across the organization, right? And so they're going out and they're searching, right? And that's how they're coming to us.
And so, there's some that are a little bit younger and are doing research on behalf of somebody, and then some that are a little bit older that are doing research for their own business or their HR department.
Yeah, that's right. And our customers range right from, really small, very, very small businesses, right, who have, a couple of employees who are, hiring, a couple of times a year, to organizations who are hiring, literally hundreds of people at any given time.
Yeah, and that's interesting. Now you kind of pick some kind of classic, like the $99 a month, and then you got 99, 189, 289.
Sure.
Where do the sales fall in that spread there? Are most of them small, or middle and big?
Yeah. So, I think for us, this was like a product-led growth sort of strategy, right? It's like, could you get somebody in the funnel, right, at a really interesting price point that says, hey, we see some value here, and then we'll grow, right? And actually, this has worked really, really well for us. So many of our customers, right, because it's the first time they're using a tool like this, they're uncertain of how it's going to go. They're not sort of willing to commit to too much. And so what we find is a lot of them will start on that lower price point plan, but then a month later they're on the mid price point plan. Nice. And then 2 months later they're on the larger plan, right, as they're scaling it across their organization and they're growing as well.
That's cool. So I'm sure you have a very defined process for how you're nurturing that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Well, yes, we do. Right. But it's evolving again. Right. This is one of the things, for instance, that, I was thinking about, I was talking with one of our sales folks the other day, and it is probably one of the areas that we haven't put as much effort into as we'd like, because, at the very beginning, we're really nurturing those new sales that are coming in. But what we need to do is nurture those customers who are already with us even more, right? We have some
Yeah.
automated things that are happening, but I think this is an area actually where we need to leverage AI more, right, to help surface those customers and their, how they're utilizing the product, right, to make sure that we're getting in front of them, as a human at the right time. So that's something that we're gonna spend some time on in the very near future.
Yeah, the upsell and cross sell opportunities, right? In the HR world, there's a lot of activity to be done there.
Yeah, that's right. And oftentimes what's happening, we're working with franchises, for instance, or, we're working with one division in an organization. And so, how do
Mhm.
we land and expand in those organizations, and how do we tell when they're sort of ready to make that next move?
Yeah, and then what kind of channel partners are you looking for right now?
Yeah, it's not an area that we've spent a ton of time on thus far, right? But it's something actually that's on our hit list for this coming year, right? Is really diving into those channel partnerships and how we can leverage, because I think there is a lot of opportunity there, that we can pursue.
Yeah, that's cool. And then what is on the product roadmap for the next 12 to 18 months for you guys?
Yeah. So, in the beginning, we really focused in on the sort of core of Truffle, right, which is this sort of video interview aspect, right? And can we get the AI right there? There's a lot of work internally to make sure that we delivered on the sort of core promise. But we really see the future as, rather than just sort of one-way video interview, as a hiring intelligence. So how do we bring more across the sort of whole life cycle of hiring? So we don't touch resumes today, but maybe there is some value, right, in looking at resumes and deciding, okay, when you get a resume, how do you know who you should do a one-way video interview with? And then what happens next, right? After you have your 10 candidates, could we use the data that we have on those candidates to say, here's what you should ask those candidates to learn the most in your sort of first interview, right? And then you
Right.
you can imagine this virtuous cycle, right, where you're making a hire and then you're feeding information back to Truffle to help improve that experience in the future, improve,
Oh, interesting.
right, the matching of those future hires, right? So you could say, this person was successful 3 months down the line, or this person wasn't, and here's why we think they weren't, right? And then we're building a better model to help, really improve hiring over time.
Yeah, and especially if you could connect up, yeah, performance reviews or some kind of assessments over time, right? Then it helps you improve the model.
Yeah, it's a big space, right? There's lots to be done here, right? And this is sort of the very beginning for us.
Yeah, well, I got to ask you which of the LLMs is the one that you prefer to use in your daily professional life?
I knew this one was coming. So, yeah, absolutely. So, for me, I would love to say something other than ChatGPT, and I do use them all, right? But I still find myself, right, going. I was listening to one of the other podcasts, and I do find myself coming back there. The memory is something that once they've got it, it's really hard to give up. That said, I think we use different tools for different things, right? Claude is probably my preferred tool to use, right?
Yeah.
It is. I find it does some things just exceedingly well. And very recently, I know you were talking about Gemini. We upgraded our organization workspace to use Gemini there, and so I've
Right.
started to explore that a little more. From an image generation, the Nano Banana stuff is pretty incredible, right? So I found that sort of next level.
Yeah, and then how deep have you gone into the custom GPTs and starting to warehouse information for yourself?
Yeah, so we use it, and we use it across the organization. So we'll build GPTs, right? Custom GPTs or projects, right, which are shared across the organization, for things like building our product roadmap, right, and making sure that we've got sort of common output of those product roadmaps, or
Okay.
ensuring that our positioning is constantly updated in the GPT, so that way, as we're building new content, right, it's always aligned with that. And I think that is a superpower that we just didn't exist previously.
Yeah, I agree. I think if there's just one thing, one activity I could give people, I'd say custom GPTs, get really good at identifying use cases and building custom GPTs, because that changes your whole life.
It is. It's a total game changer, right? And especially from an alignment perspective, right? Because you have folks who have various talent levels with different things, right? And it really helps to keep everybody on the same page. And personally, I absolutely couldn't live without it anymore. It's funny, it's one of those things, right? Pride from my cold hand. There's no way that I could give it up at this point. I think GPT and Claude were down, a couple weeks ago, and I remember sitting at my desk going, "Well, what do I do now?"
I know. I actually have to think. Either I got to sit there and think, or I got to go run some errands.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think I found myself leaving the house going, "Well, maybe I'll make a couple of phone calls at this point."
There you go. I love it. Well, I think Truffle is a really innovative and straightforward product, and good work on getting traction. And congratulations on another nice venture, Sean.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much. It's been really fulfilling. So excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, no, it's cool. And if people want to get in touch with you and have a conversation about tech or about hiring, how do they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Would love connecting with folks, right? It is one of the reasons why I do this. So LinkedIn is great, right? Or hit up the website as well. We've got some live chat and you can always find me there. Or email, of course, Sean@hiretruffle.com.
All right. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with me today and talking about hiretruffle.com. And I hope you have a great afternoon.
Excellent. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
All right. You betcha. Thank you. It's good. It's good to see that it's okay to use ChatGPT and do some research and find out how to best structure custom GPTs. I hope you found some value from the episode today from Hire Truffle with Sean Griffith, and I hope that you take some time to do some research on AI tools that can help you professionally, and that with that time you use it to continue to upskill. You spend more time with your friends and family, and that you get outside away from the screens and get out into nature. This is Emmanuel Rose, Marketing in the Age of AI.
Thanks for listening to Marketing in the Age of AI. Be sure to subscribe wherever you heard this podcast so you never miss a future episode. Your copy of Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI is available at Amazon.com or EmmanuelRose.com. You can also connect with Emmanuel on LinkedIn. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.